And joining us now is the Indian ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Kwatra. Thank you so much for making time for us. I know it's been a very busy week for you the past 8, 10 days since the trade deal has been announced. So really thank you for doing this with us. A lot of questions around the trade deal, facts and fact sheets and a lot of text. But I wanted to start you by asking, how did this all happen? Now, we've been waiting for this trade deal for some time. It was announced last year around this time when the prime minister was in town. So, what went behind the scene? I think that's the first thing we want to know. How were we able to manage to get this deal done? And if anything you can provide, any some tidbits behind the scenes that happened to clinch this trade deal.
Yeah. Rohit, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I think we should ask ourselves as to when did this all begin? You alluded to it very briefly, but I think the whole thing started last year during Prime Minister's visit to the US in February 2025, when the two leaders, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, gave two directions to the administration on both sides. One was to conclude to start negotiating the first tranche of a mutually beneficial multi-sector bilateral trade agreement. And second was that they gave us a target of objective of Mission 500, that is a bilateral trade of $500 billions in a few years' time. What followed thereafter was a series of intense engagements and negotiations between the two sides, including several rounds of discussions at the ministerial level. Of course, the chief negotiators on the two sides were in very, very regular touch with each other, always under the direction and supervision of the leadership. And it's the result of those intense, dedicated, and committed efforts on both sides that we saw first the announcement through the two leadership level tweets about the trade deal, and just in a few days thereafter, the text of the joint statement of the framework for an interim agreement was released, which spelled out precisely the achievements that the two sides had made during these negotiations. And the result is that you have a trade deal between the two countries. So I think it's a process that started a year ago, and a year later, the process that was started by Prime Minister Modi and President Trump, and under their direction, we now have a very concrete achievement on both sides in terms of framework for an interim agreement.
Ambassador, it did take a long time, almost a year, like 350 some days now, if I have to be exact. Just and you've been at the forefront of these negotiations. You've obviously participated in some of these conversations by yourself, and also, in helping things iron out between both the countries. Was there a point where, you're like, all right, this is finally going to happen? Like, or were you also kind of, this could happen tomorrow, it could happen, a few weeks from now? Like everybody, there was suspense around this trade deal. So I'm trying to understand, like, when were you very confident, okay, now this is the time it will happen eventually?
I think it is in the very nature of these discussions that they are not done till they are finally done. And as you yourself saw, that the deal was announced following a conversation, after around multiple conversations, of course, between the two leaders. And then the negotiators released the joint statement. So I think it's the process of negotiation is such that you announce it once it is concluded. And I think that's what one has to focus on. I think how one felt or didn't feel, frankly, is not really a question that would even be relevant in this case. I think what's relevant is that we did intense series of negotiations, and we achieved the mandate that the two leaders had given to the two systems. And we now have, as I said, the interim framework for an interim agreement.
Now, I've learned from some sources that it was a very happy phone call that took place between the Prime Minister and the President. That, there was a lot of, happiness around it. And then finally, it was decided, all right, this is the time to do it. We've got this trade agreement that we probably should look at. Now that this has been announced, what could be the benefit to the US and India relationship? I'm not talking about, what India gets from it or the US gets from it. The benefit to the relationship in itself, which has been on an upward trajectory for the past 25, 30 years or so.
You are referring to happiness. I mean, you can call it by whichever name, but I think it is indeed, I would say, a new economic anchor in our strategic partnership, this framework for an interim agreement. Very extensive and specific details of this have already been spelled out by the Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister of India over several interviews in Delhi, including to your channel. So as you rightly said, those details are already available, so one would not want to talk about it. But I think we should ask ourselves that this new economic anchor in our strategic partnership, what exactly does it mean for the stakeholders on both sides, particularly in this case to the stakeholders on the Indian side? So, for example, if you say, what does it mean for the Indian industry? What does it mean for the Indian manufacturing? What does it mean for our partnership in case of technology, business to business engagement, in terms of capital flows, in terms of what we're able to do with innovation, in terms of how it feeds into our own goals and priorities of Viksit Bharat 2047. So if you ask yourself, if you take industries, for example, whether it is the export of Indian industrial goods or it is the exports of commodity-based manufactured Indian goods, or it is the export of Indian agri-produce. The trade deal obviously opens up the massive US market of $30 trillion. Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister has alluded to it. But alongside the trade benefit, the export-related benefit that it would accrue to the Indian industry and the industrial stakeholders, it also opens up a significant opportunity for technology and capital-based partnership between the industries on both sides across various sectors of industry. Alongside this, if you look at the entire domain of technology, not just the already strong areas of partnership in the semiconductor-based technologies between the two countries, but also the emerging space of artificial intelligence, different layers of artificial intelligence, right from energy, infra, to compute, to development of AI products, to the deployment, adoption, diffusion of AI products across different sectors of industry. The entire innovation ecosystem surrounding the semiconductor and the technology ecosystem, the partnerships in those areas, the capital flows between the two countries in these spaces, this whole sector opens up as a massive opportunity. It already was there. There was already a degree of cooperation taking place. But after this deal, it gives everybody confidence that this sector will get considerable boost. Now, flowing out of exports, increased exports that would be consequence of this trade deal from India to the US market, and also derivative of large investment flows, technology partnership. Naturally, it is to be expected that this would give rise to significant employment generation in the Indian economy, employment generation which is very, very significant for the developing economy and also for our goal to achieve Viksit Bharat in 2047. You also would have noticed that insofar as the interests of the farming community sensitive farm produce that India has, the export interest of agri-produce that India has insofar as the US market is concerned, they will also get a considerable fillip. So if I was to, summarize it and capture it for you, one, clear, strong, concrete impetus to Mission 500, that is a bilateral trade of US dollar 500 that was set by the two leaders during Prime Minister's visit to the US in February 2025. One. Two, flowing out of this, strong capital, technology, innovation-based partnership between the two countries, including in the space of critical emerging technologies. Uh, and three, all this gets positioned in the larger space of our strategic partnership. It strengthens it further. At the same time, it drives it forward. Drives it forward in terms of building really concrete partnership between the business and industry on the two sides, and hence, therefore, naturally linking the two economies more extensively, more deeply.
Now, we do know, Ambassador, that the USTR is going to be in India in March. Is that when we expected to finally have the agreement signed? Is that something that you could speak to, or is it too early to even say that?
We are remain focused, as I said, one on tapping the opportunities that flow out of trade deal, and naturally also trying to complete the process of concluding the first tranche of BTA as early as possible. That I think the two negotiators remain very closely and intensely engaged with each other.
Okay. Ambassador, there's going to be this big AI summit next week in India. We are expecting, I mean, it's pretty much, the entire American industry from AI. Everybody is in India. We obviously see some government officials also traveling to India to participate in this. Can you talk to us about the AI summit and, what we could look forward to from all these, I would say probably big wigs, everybody except, I think, some few who are not dealing in AI is going to be in India. So just tell us about this AI summit and what can we expect in terms of India-US relations.
No, you're very right. It's really a very exciting high mark very early on in 2026, the AI Impact Summit in India, the first AI summit to be held in a global South country. It is featuring the largest contingent in the AI summit is from the United States, encompassing, of course, the industry leaders, the CEOs, a sizable contingent from the US government itself. In terms of the priorities and focus for this AI summit, as has been put out publicly, the summit would be anchored on three sutras, which is of people, progress, and planet. But broadly, this bold new vision of AI for the government of India under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, which he has himself articulated several times, is the democratization of technology. AI for all essentially is the impact aspect that we would all be looking at. And this impact of democratization of technology, in this case AI, and its access to all would manifest itself in terms of people first, which means essentially the inclusion, the inclusivity, progress, and the planet. We have at this summit given very strong priority and focus to the impact part of the AI, which essentially would include aspects relating to adoption of AI, its diffusion across multiple industries, so that it's not just the development of product of AI, which is the language models, the large language models that one speaks of. That, of course, is a priority aspect for the government, but also its deployment, its adoption, its diffusion, development of applications around it, which can benefit people at large, Ultimately, if one takes the massive success under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi of adoption of technology for inclusion into the financial mechanisms, the UPI technology framework, the entire India technology stack that got developed, essentially democratizing the use of technology for better governance, for creating a value in the society eventually. And I think it will be no different for AI. It's essentially a new step, I would say, new tool, whatever you want to call it, in terms of development and evolution of technology. But we remain heavily focused on all aspects of AI, right? As I mentioned earlier on the energy layer of it, infrastructure layer of it, obviously the compute part of it, development of products, which is the LLMs, and of course, the most significant from our objective point of view, which is the adoption and diffusion. I have no doubt that this summit would also open up extensive new opportunities of partnership between India and the US as two countries, but also as two technology ecosystems and the two economies in terms of what they can do with in terms of cooperation between our two countries in this space.
All right, Ambassador, thank you so much for making time for us. We look forward to seeing you back in the US when you come back from a very successful AI. Thank you, and
Thank
have
you
a
very
wonderful
much.